The problem nobody warned us about. There's something strange about school. We spend years memorizing formulas, reading chapters, and rushing through assignments. But almost nobody teaches us how to study. You're expected to just figure it out. And for a while, maybe you did. But then a harder class comes, or college hits, or the pressure increases. And suddenly the strategies that once worked don't work anymore. I've been there. You're sitting at your desk, staring at notes you don't really understand, wondering why it feels like everyone else gets it, while you're stuck reading the same line again and again. It's not your fault. It's the missing skills, the ones school should have taught but simply never did. What you'll learn today. So today, we're fixing that. I'll walk you through 5 essential study skills that most people don't learn until it's too late. Skills that make learning faster, remembering easier, and studying less stressful. These aren't hacks or tricks. They're practical habits you can apply today. Simple, science-backed, and most importantly, usable on your worst study days. The 5 essentials school forgot to teach. 1. How to actually understand before you memorize. School teaches you to memorize information, but not how to make sense of it. And that leads to the classic mistake we all make: reading a page, memorizing the words, and then going blank during the test. Understanding is the real foundation. Here's the method I wish someone taught me earlier. The explain it to a 12-year-old test. Take whatever you're learning, a math concept, a biology pathway, an economic principle, and try explaining it using simple, ordinary language. Not fancy terms, not perfect definitions, just the simple version. If you can teach it simply, you understand it. If you can't, you don't. Yet. When I first tried this, I realized how often I was memorizing without actually learning. It was honestly humbling. But the clarity it gives you is worth it. Try explaining photosynthesis without using the word photosynthesis. Suddenly you're forced to understand what's actually happening. People skip this because they think it's too slow. But skipping understanding always makes studying slower in the long run. 2. The skill of breaking down big tasks so they don't break you instead. Most study stress doesn't come from the work itself. It comes from the size of the work. School never teaches us how to break assignments, chapters, or giant projects into pieces that feel doable. Here's the method. Turn every task into something that can be done in 10-20 minutes. Have a huge chapter? Break it into pages. Have an essay? Break it into sections. Have a revision plan? Break it into small review sessions. This lowers the psychological weight. I used to look at a 40-page chapter and think, there's no way I can finish this tonight. But reading 4 pages? That suddenly feels possible. A Japanese study coach once said something that stuck with me. Learning is eaten like rice, one small bite at a time. It sounds simple, but it's exactly the mindset that keeps students consistent. Mistake to avoid: breaking a task into smaller pieces, but then treating each piece like a big task again. Keep them small, keep them gentle. 3. The art of asking better questions. Most students never learn how to ask questions, the kind that make you smarter, not just less confused. We usually ask questions only when we're completely stuck. But strong learners ask questions before the confusion happens. Here are 3 questions that instantly deepen your understanding. What is this actually saying? Why does this matter? How does this connect to what I already know? When you train your brain to ask these questions early, you prevent most of the confusion people usually run into later. If you're learning physics and ask, why does this formula matter? You'll automatically remember where to apply it. If you're reading literature and ask, what is this chapter really saying? You'll stop reading words and start reading meaning. Thinking questions are a sign of weakness. They're not. Questions are how your brain locks information into place. 4. How to review smarter. Not longer school teaches us to revise, but never teaches how to revise. So most people just reread everything, again and again. But rereading creates an illusion of learning. You feel familiar with the material, but familiarity isn't memory. Here's the method that actually works: active recall plus spaced repetition. And don't worry, simple explanation. Active recall means testing yourself often, not just reading. Spaced repetition means spreading your review sessions over time. If you combine these two, your memory strengthens dramatically. Instead of reading your chemistry notes 5 times before the exam, read them once. and then test yourself 3 times across the week. You'll save time, remember more, and feel less pressure the night before. Mistake to avoid. People think testing themselves is too hard, so they stick to rereading because it feels easier. But the discomfort of recall is exactly what builds memory. 5. How to build a study environment that doesn't fight you. School teaches you where to sit, but not how to create an environment that helps you focus. Your brain is shaped by your surroundings more than you think. Here's the method. Remove friction. Add cues. Friction equals anything that slows you down, like a messy desk, multiple tabs, or studying on your bed. Cues equals anything that signals your brain that it's time to work, like a dedicated spot, a certain playlist, or a simple ritual before starting. This is why minimalist study spaces work so well, not because they're aesthetic, but because they reduce decision-making. When I was in college, I kept trying to study on my bed. It felt comfortable, until I realized I was basically training my brain to get sleepy every time I opened my notes. A simple move to a small desk changed everything. Trying to make the environment perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to remove friction. Pitfalls and warnings. What can go wrong? Let's address the big risks people usually run into. 1. Trying to do all 5 skills at once. Choose one skill, practice it for a week, and then layer the rest. 2. Falling back into old habits when stress increases. This is normal. Habits fall apart under pressure, but they also rebuild quickly. 3. Confusing productivity with progress. Being busy doesn't mean you're learning. Use understanding, small tasks, and active recall to keep yourself honest. 4. Ignoring sleep, breaks, and rest. They're part of the learning process, not extras. What we covered today. Before we end, here's a quick recap of the 5 study skills school should have taught. Understand before you memorize. Break big tasks into small, doable actions. Ask deeper questions to guide your learning. Review using active recall and spaced repetition. Build an environment that supports focus, not fights it. If you apply even one of these consistently, your entire study experience will start feeling lighter, clearer, and more manageable. At the end of the day, you don't need to become the perfect student. You just need better tools, the ones school forgot to teach. Try one of these skills this week, just one. See how it feels. See how your clarity and confidence shift. And if this helped, consider subscribing, not for motivation, but for guidance. Because studying isn't about doing more, it's about doing what actually works. Your future self will thank you for starting today.